difference is doing it. Okay, listen. We are back with a big one for you this time. I'm talking about a big one. I have been hyping this month's disc art giveaway video up for like a month or so now, because not only is it another one of the giveaways we do, but this one is also going to be doubling as another episode of Other Basement Disc Dyers. I need like a graphic for that. And in this episode of we are going to be featuring the TDIDI Army's very own, my main man Josh from over at Apocalypse Disc Dyes, which, needless to say, Josh is a real dude. And here is what we are going to be exploiting him for today. He's not just a killer artist, which is represented in his work that is scrolling by my face here now, but he is also like a super duper computer geek, which, yeah. And he is going to today be walking us through, talking us through, teaching us through all of the stuff that happens before you're even ready to go. All the stuff on the computer, the beep-bop-bop-bop-bop stuff it takes to get like an image and convert it over into something that's like awesome for a stencil that your cutter's just gonna love and it's gonna come out crystal clean. This is that's why, listen, I've mostly been like faking my way through that crap and just figuring out stuff that works. And usually what that ends up meaning is like it takes me super duper long. It takes so long to get some of the images ready sometimes. This stuff, man, it's gonna cut that time in half at least. And he's gonna go through all of it, right? He'll hit you with the beep bop 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 stuff on the computer, and then he's gonna show you how to do like the super detailed stuff on the disc with some camera tricks, and I'm telling you, he's gonna blow your mind. It blew my mind. And then like how to repair it, how to weed it, all the tips and tricks. And then my man's gonna show you a trick to prevent bleeding that I'm just gonna say it works every time. Okay, I've done it a bunch too, and listen, it works every time. And then he'll take you all the way through to hot dipping the disc, and then this is where like the trifecta, the crossover, comes into play. As soon as he's done hot dipping it, takes it and then hooks it all the way out to Old Man Bob Cobb in Maryland. And then on the first try, I was like, "Pah!" Caught it, and then put it down and bang, did my thing. And then yeah, that's how it got finished up. And I was talking to Josh, and I was like, "Josh, what do you think we should do with this thing?" I was like, "Dude, you know what we should do with this thing? Give it away to the TDIDI Army!" Yeah! So, listen, not only is my main man here giving us like a pant load of his time, because this stuff takes a long time, and like a buttload of his knowledge, but come on, he's giving us friggin' plastic to give away too, which, told you he's a dude. I don't know how much more dude it gets than that. Come on. So, here's what you got coming today, okay? It's like 30 minutes-ish of a masterclass with my man Josh, walking you through all that stuff that I talked about. And then after like this part, like a 5-minute quick banger with Old Man Bob Cobb, PAH! To finish it all up. And then I'm gonna jump back on the other side, and we'll talk about instructions on how to enter the giveaway and to collect that sucker and to stick it in yo bag. But listen, there's also like a little surprise coming in this one. I don't want to say what it is, okay? I'm not gonna blow the surprise, but here's what I will say. If you pay attention during the tutorial, you might pick up on it. The ones of you that are like sneaky and detective and smart, you might figure it out before the time comes. But when I circle back, we'll talk about that. Instructions on how to get in on the giveaway and the little bit of the surprise that's coming. Here is the last thing I'll say before we roll the tutorial. Look, if you haven't already, you need to hop over and check out Josh's YouTube channel called Apocalypse Disc Dyes. That's what he called, that's what his YouTube channel's called. It's really easy, okay? Apocalypse Disc Dyes. Because, I mean, man, look, here's what I'm trying to say. If you like our content, you're gonna love his. You're gonna love it. Because it's like the same thing, he's just way better at editing and producing it. Way better. You'll get to see what I'm talking about, alright? Look, his portion of the video, I didn't do anything for that. Alright? He didn't just send me the footage and be like, "Oh, hey, Valkyrie, do your thing." No, he edited and produced the whole thing. And it's like you'll see what I'm talking about. My man knows what he's doing. Okay? So, look, I'm going to link it in the description. I'm going to link it right here. I think... I can never get that. I think I got it that time. And then at the end of the video, all those places, press that button. you're gonna when you do, you're gonna be like, yo, old man Bob Cobb knew what he's talking about. This stuff is the hotness. Go check them out. Okay, now all that's out of the way. It's time to strap in, kiddies, because this show's about to start. All right, I'll be back in about 30-ish to talk about the surprise and how did you get on the giveaway. All right, but for now, it is time to start doing it.
I've had a lot of questions lately about how I create my stencils, how to get so much detail out of the images. Most people just run out and buy a vinyl cutter and some vinyl and they're ready to go, right? Well, it's not that simple. You can't just throw any photo file into your cutter and expect to get good results out of it. There are a few basics that you need to know about digital photos, graphic design, and CAD software before you can just dive right into it. So today, we're going to do a small crash course on the different types of digital photo files, which ones are the best ones to create stencils with, and which ones you should probably try to avoid. We're going to be using Inkscape for everything that we do today. It's a free, open source vector graphics software that has a ton of uses. It can be used to create all different kinds of artwork, but today we're going to use it to convert raster files into vectors that we can use in our vinyl cutter. If you don't already have it, go here and download it. Like I said, it's free. It's also very customizable. When you first install it, it's going to look something like this. If you want to follow along with me here after you've installed it, then these are the changes that I make to it so that my old eyeballs can see it better. In the preferences menu, you can go up here to, I like to use the dark theme with the symbolic icons. Make sure you have this checked, and then right here you can choose your own custom icon color for all of these. I like to use the bright green because, like I said, it's just easier for me to see. One more thing that you're going to need to do, you see all of these icons over here. If you go to view and click custom, it's going to move those up to the top. And I like to have them up there because it gives me a little bit more space here in the work area. So just a real quick overview of Inkscape here. I'm not going to go over all these different tools because, for one, it would just take too long. We could spend an hour just talking about all the different things that you can do with it. But I will talk about a couple of the things that you're going to be using very frequently when you're making these stencils. So if you look right up here, first off, there's your select tool. Pretty self-explanatory. Click to select items. You can hold shift and click to select multiple items. And you can drag a box just like anything else. Directly under that, you've got your edit paths by nodes tool. You can use this a lot. If you have an object like this circle, and you select all the edit path by nodes tool there, it brings up all of these nodes along the path of this object. And you can grab and pull and manipulate these things in a lot of different ways. You can see they've got these little handles here that you can use to move and stretch. Get real familiar with Control Z as your undo button. You're going to make a lot of mistakes and it will keep you from ripping your own hair out. There are basically two types of digital photo files that you're going to come across. Bitmaps, that are also known as rasters, and the other one is vectors. You're already familiar with rasters, even if you don't know that you are. Rasters are images that are made up of pixels, aligned in a grid. Each pixel is assigned a color, and thousands of them are combined to create an image. If you've ever zoomed in on an image and the edges got blurry, like this one here, that's a raster file. These are your JPEGs, your PNGs, your GIFs, all the typical pictures that you're accustomed to already. Vectors are a little different. Vectors don't have pixels. Vectors are made up of paths. These paths are generated by mathematical equations that are rendered in your GPU to create an image. You may remember from algebra, you can take an equation like this and represent it on a graph, something like this. That's how vectors work. Since they aren't made up of pixels, they're infinitely scalable. You can make them as big or as small as you want without any distortion to the image. And that's why we want them for our stencils instead of those blurry JPEGs. The paths that are generated to create the edges of the image are the paths that your cutter head and your vinyl cutter is going to follow when it's cutting out the stencil. The main type of vector file that we're going to be working with are .svgs, scalable vector graphics. It's right there in the name, they're scalable. You might also come across .ai files, Adobe Illustrator files, and .esp files. They're both vectors. You can't use them in Inkscape, but just know that they are easily converted into an SVG so that you can. Converting a raster file into a vector is fairly simple in Inkscape. The real trick is choosing the right starting image. There are three things to look for when choosing your starting image: resolution, clarity, and file type. Resolution is the number of pixels in each dimension, the length and the width. You've seen, a 300 by 300 picture or a 1280 by 1024. That's the resolution. The larger the numbers, the more pixels in each dimension. Typically, clearer the image. Clarity is just that. If an image is blurry or doesn't have well-defined edges, then it's not going to yield a good result. And then finally, there's the file type. I've found that typically JPEGs are not as clear as PNGs, but PNGs sometimes have a clear background, which always helps. Ultimately, you're just going to have to do some trial and error, playing around with different images until you really know what to look for. Your cutting software already has a built-in function to convert rasters to vectors, but it's not as precise as we're going to need it to be, let me show you why. So I'm using the Cricut Design Space software because I have a Cricut cutter. I haven't used any of the other brands, but I imagine the function of the other software is at least similar enough that you'll be able to transfer everything over that you see here. First thing we're going to do is if I drop this picture in here, you see that we can go in, and the first thing what you got to do is we're going to click here to take out the parts that we want cut out, and you see how we're not getting a very clear picture there. This is the reason why our starting image matters. This one was pretty blurry to begin with, and you see how it's not going to give us clean cuts, no clean lines, nothing. So, not ideal. I have some examples here of different images that I want to show you how each one of them turns out when we take them through this process of converting them. We're going to start off with this one. And you see here, this is the one, has all the blurry edges. It's not a very good image. It has this dark background. You're going to see why that's not very helpful. The first thing we're going to do, so there's a function here up in this path menu. It's called Trace Bitmap. If you have a picture selected, turn this on, let me get it off my other monitor. So this Trace Bitmap tool does pretty much what it says it does. It's going to trace this bitmap. It's going to trace the edges of all the colors to try to get a vectorized image of it out of it. And what you can do, there are all kinds of different settings in here. If you want to get in there and play around with a bunch of them, you can. I recommend just using this brightness cutoff. By adjusting this threshold number here, you can fine-tune how it traces around those colors and creates that vector. And I'll show you what I do. Usually what I do is I'll take a picture and I'll start off, I'll take 3 scans of it across a range there and compare them all together. I usually do like a 0.25, a 0.5, and a 0.75. Okay, and you see, so now we have a vectorized version of that image. You can see here, this one, no pixels, that's a vector. But you can also see we didn't get a very good one out of that. If I were to come back and do, let's get to 50. See, it goes completely dark at that point. That's way too high. And those numbers that I'm using, the 25, 50, and 75, they're just a relative starting point. Sometimes you may have a picture that you'll do scans at 15, 25, and 35. Just play around with it. Every one of them is going to be different. But you can see here how this is not a good example. This is an example of a bad picture. It's a bad image that you want to start off with. It's already pretty blurry. This one doesn't pass the clarity test. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this one was, the resolution was real small. It was a 400 by 400 to begin with. So, not a good one to start with. Let's move to this second one here. Now what I wanted to show here, this picture looks a lot better. It's a little bit clearer, right? I believe the resolution on it was a lot higher. This one is a PNG. But one thing that it has going against it is, you see these colors in here? Let me turn this highlight off here so we can see. It's going to get confused the bitmap traces, when it starts trying to differentiate between this web here, this shading up here in the face, all of this, it's not going to be able to tell the difference of that. It's going to be a little bit too complicated for it, and I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to do, like I said, I'm going to start off with a 0.25 scan, and it's got a preview window over here. You can hit update and take a look at it. You can see already there's a lot of extra things in here that we don't want. Yeah. So again, another example of a picture you probably want to stay away from. The shading and all that little detail in here, like I said, it can't tell the difference between all of that. So that's another one you want to stay away from. And I've got one more example here of what not to do. So this picture, I know the resolution was real high. It's PNG, it has a clear background. The clarity is good. But if you zoom in and you see the shading in here is going to be an issue. So if we go here, I'm going to do 3 scans on this one so you can see it across the full spectrum. 50. This one, 75 just to show you, but you can see how it's already getting. So that one almost looked like it had potential. And you can see in this first one, it didn't have enough detail in here. Things in his hand didn't even show up. And when you get over here, you lose too much. So again, another example of a bad one. Usually the ones that I find to work best are going to be black and white. As long as they match all the other criteria that I talked about, you can usually make them work. Now you can look here and you can see by changing that threshold, you get little subtle differences. If you notice right here, see that little piece sticking up? So that's why I take a couple of different scans and then decide which one I want out of them. You can see as we get up into 75, these legs are just a little bit thicker than they were back here. But maybe the detail's better. Sometimes when you get into a little bit more of a complicated image, you may even have to take elements from each one of these scans and kind of Frankenstein them together. I've had to do that lots of times. All right. So now I want to take you down here to this one. Once you get a file that you like, and you get a couple of good scans off of it. And what I'm doing here, sometimes when you get that vector on and you go to grab it and pull it off, you'll accidentally grab the original picture underneath it. When I had this one selected, I hit the Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and you can see all the nodes. If I had the original JPEG selected, there are no nodes, so you know which one it is. So again, you can see how in these lower threshold scans, you might lose a little bit of detail, but you've got thinner lines. Sometimes that works for an image, sometimes it doesn't. Here you can see we're starting to lose. We're getting more of the detail, but we don't have all of it yet. I think we're going to work with this last one. So I like this last one. So let's get rid of these. So now that I've got this, you can come in here now and you can really start to fine-tune the detail with it by using this Edit Paths by Nodes tool, okay? Because if you look down in here, sometimes you get little bits like this that aren't really necessary to the image. And so these little bits right here, whenever you cut it, this is a piece that needs to, when you dye it, this piece needs to stay in place because it's going to create the negative space. It's going to block the dye. It's going to be the white spot on the disc. That's going to be a tiny little piece, and when your cutter starts cutting that piece can lift out of there, and it can be a real pain. So if you've got any of these tiny little ones that aren't necessary for the image, I like to delete them out. So I'll come in here, take your Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and if you get in here, you can see all these little nodes. You see how this thing here is an element inside there, but if you select all of these and just hit delete, gone. Don't have to worry about it again. This guy here, I'm going to do the same thing. Now another handy little thing that will help you later on down the line when you get better at this. There's a lot of keyboard shortcuts in this program that make things a lot easier. I suggest you learn them. One of them that I use is I'm holding the control button right here, and if you hover over these nodes and use your mouse wheel to scroll up and down, you can select them or deselect them, and it only selects the ones along that path, which is handy when you're trying to select only this little bit so that you can bleed it out like that. So now, if you go around here, there's another little bit. So you can get in there, and like I said, you can fine tune all of the detail in here and really fix any image that you want and get it like you want it so that you can get it onto a disc. And then once you've had enough practice with simpler images, you can take all those techniques that we just did and use them on something a little more complicated. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to do all of the techniques that I just showed you. I'm going to speed the video up so we can get through it real fast. But you can see how I can do everything that I just did on something like this. So I'll see you on the other side. And there you have it. Now all you have to do is save it as an SVG file, drop it into your cutting software, and you're off to the races. So I want to take a minute to talk about the tools that I use. When you're working with these detailed stencils, your tools can make all the difference. Get yourself a couple of squeegees. They're really handy for laying vinyl down and getting your contact paper down nice and smooth. I keep a set of small scissors around for when I'm weeding. Sometimes you need to cut some of the excess off just to keep things flowing. Your vinyl cutter probably came with a basic little weeding tool like this. This isn't going to be good enough for what we need. We need something a lot more precise. I like to use dental picks. They've got this sharp little end on here where you can get down into some really tight places. They're well balanced, they fit in the hand well. And one of my favorite things about them is some of them have this little flat spot on the back of the hook here. It's really good to use as a burnishing tool for getting your vinyl to lay down and get all those little bubbles out. Tweezers. Try to avoid the hobby shops. The ones that you can get there, they're good for holding small things, that kind of thing, but they're not really good for grabbing the vinyl and pulling. You need something with some really good teeth on here, and these ones you get from the hobby shops they tend to not have good teeth on them. The best set I found that I really like to use, I actually got from the emergency room. I went in to get some stitches, and when I was finished, the doctor told me I could take all the tools home because they were going to have to throw them away anyway. But these tweezers are for doing sutures, for doing stitches, and they're really good for grabbing stuff because they got these nice pronounced teeth on them right here. If you can find a pair like this, these are the best. I actually prefer scalpels to X-Acto knives for a very good reason. I had an accident once. An X-Acto knife rolled off my bench into my lap. Instinctively, to catch it, I closed my legs. Now, luckily I didn't hurt myself, but from that day forward, I don't do X-Acto knives. I prefer the scalpels for a few different reasons. Number one, they're flat. They're not going to roll off into my lap. No accidents there. They're very well balanced. They fit in the hand well. I feel like I've got a lot more control. They're a lot more precise. I feel like maybe there's a reason surgeons use these. They're also pretty cheap. I found on eBay a dental supplier who was getting rid of a bunch of his inventory, and I got a few scalpel handles, probably 1,000 blades, and these dental picks for around $20. They're not expensive at all, so that's what I use for my stencils. All right, let's get going now. Now the blades in your vinyl cutter are designed to spin inside that head. You'll notice on some of the finer details on the smaller cuts, as that thing turns and the blade spins, it'll lift the vinyl out of there, kind of like you see right here. There's one way to mitigate that before you ever cut anything is your cutter, your blades come in different angles. Get the steepest angle possible. I think 60 degrees is the one. It'll help eliminate a little bit of that. But eventually you're just going to have to put this thing back together like a jigsaw puzzle. And that's what the next step is right here. Now, this was extremely difficult to film. Bear with me here. I got better at it as we went along, so you'll see. On this first stencil, I didn't get a whole lot of footage, but you can see here what I'm doing is I'm putting all these little pieces back in. Any of the ones that were going to end up being weeded out anyway, don't bother with those, just pull them out, obviously. But that's what I'm doing here. And again, here you can see the advantage of the dental picks for handling those little tiny pieces and getting them back in there. There's no way I could have done this with any other tools. Alright, time to get some contact paper down. Now, I like to get the contact paper on before I pull the stencil off of the cutting mat, because as I peel it away, I've had them shift before, and I've ruined stencils like that. So I get the contact paper on, that way when I peel it, it stays in place. Now, if you're not using the laser pointer trick for centering your stencils, what are you even doing? Go to PetSmart, spend $7, get a laser pointer, hang it. I hang mine from a magnet on one of my snake lights on my bench there. Makes things so much easier. Now, I also like to make sure I get around all these edges here so that when I fold the vinyl over the disc, those creases don't become bleed points. And that can happen if you have an edge of a stencil that's out near the outer edge of the disc where those creases are. And sometimes, depending on the type of vinyl that I'm using, I'll even take my heat gun around the edge of the disc and kind of shrink wrap that vinyl a little bit. Obviously, be super careful, you don't want to warp the disc. Now you can see here, again, dental picks, how I can get in these little tiny places and get this vinyl to come up. Now when you have a whole bunch of little curves like this, you see how I'm wiggling the vinyl? That'll help all those little pieces come up without doing too much tearing. And even though this was a very detailed stencil with 1,000 little pieces, I didn't run into a whole lot of problems where I had to make any repairs. And I've got some repair techniques that I wanted to show you, so we're going to do a second one. This time I chose a stencil that I know is difficult because I've done it before. Now you can see here, this one, the vinyl lifted a lot on it, and it actually stretched, and then the blade ran across vinyl that was up in the air and lifted, so it cut it all to hell. Don't be afraid to throw it away and start over. I think I cut this one 4 times before I got one that was usable, and even that one had pieces missing. But I can show you how to fix that too. So if you got any pieces that get destroyed, have to come off for whatever reason, you can always go and recut the parts and replace them. The hardest part there is just making sure you get the proportions right. As you can see here, the little bone in the finger came out. So I went and cut some new pieces, and I did it in the black vinyl just so it would stand out here so that you could see it better. Very carefully putting it into place. Have I mentioned how much I love these dental picks? Now, again, you see how I'm using the flat end of that hook there as a burnishing tool. It's just perfect. Now what I'm doing here, that cut, the little piece that came out of there, was so tiny that the groove was really small. I'm using the tip of that dental pick to kind of spread that out a little bit to give the die a little place to go so we don't lose that detail. Now that replacement piece that I cut ended up being just slightly a little too big, so I had to do a little bit of trimming. This is where I grab the trusty scalpels and get down in there and get all that stuff out. Now here you can see I'm using my tweezers to steady the tip of the scalpel as I cut. Hey, it turned out alright. I like it. Let's get back to weeding. Now I don't know about the rest of you out there, but I really enjoy weeding stencils. It's very relaxing. It's almost zen-like for me. I put my headphones on and just go to town. And I learned something while making this video too. Apparently I sing when I do it. And this next thing I'm about to show you here is one of the most important functions that this dental pick gives me when I'm doing the weeding here. Sometimes you have these little pieces that don't really want to come out, and it's really hard to find a way to get them. But if you notice what I'm doing here, I'll take the dental pick and lay it down on top of the piece and then peel the vinyl up around the pick. It'll hold it down for me. Now sometimes when we're weeding, you accidentally grab and pull on something you weren't supposed to. Anybody ever done that? You can do a little damage to your vinyl, like that right there. Now just carefully lay everything back down and assess the damage first. If it's bad, you can use a little glue, white glue or hot glue, in the dye process to cover that and to help seal it. If it's not too bad, like this one here, we got lucky. I caught it in time. The next step in this process will actually take care of that, and you'll see what I mean soon. Now I want to take this opportunity to talk about bubbles. Everybody hates bubbles, right? We're supposed to get them all out. You don't want any bubbles in there. But are all bubbles bad? I mean, if you got some out here in this area, doesn't really matter. Dye's not going to get to that. It's not going to bleed through there. The ones you got to watch out for are these right here. The ones right along the edges. Those are the ones that are going to cause the bleeds. And bleeds are a stencil dyer's worst nightmare.
You hate them, right? I hate them myself!
So, using the burnishing end of my dental pick, I push a little bit of them down here just to kind of get those out, working them out towards the edges. I don't worry too much about it right now because, like I said, in the next step, you'll see why. Now this little piece right here was lost somewhere in the jigsaw weeding process. It was so small that I didn't bother with cutting a replacement piece, and I actually wanted to use this spot to show another little technique that I use to repair something like this. Using a little white glue, I'm gonna make a mask. Take a toothpick, put it in there. Now you don't want to use too much, because as you pull this vinyl away, you don't want it to grab that and stick to it and string off of it. It'll warp what you're trying to do. Now very slowly pull the vinyl away here. Now since we're using white glue here, if you're gonna do like a hot dip to dye this, then it's not gonna work. The white glue won't hold up to that. I've tried doing it with hot glue, but the hot glue sets up before I can get the vinyl off. In this case, I'm just going to pull it off and dye over it. It's a small enough piece where it doesn't matter. You'll never notice. I chose this particular disc for this dye because it had a very pronounced raised edge where the hot stamp was. And you can see it right here. It's very, very visible. Now that is, as everybody knows, those are the main bleed points that you're going to run into. Again, this next step that we're about to go over is going to take care of that. And there we are, ready for the next step. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna hot dip it in clear water. It's gonna do a couple of things. It's gonna warm up the vinyl. It's gonna cause it to stretch and relax a little bit. It's also gonna heat up the adhesive underneath. Now as the disc cools and the vinyl cools, that vinyl is gonna tighten up around it. And that's really gonna be a big advantage to us in help tightening up all those bleed points. Tightening up any bubbles around the edges, things like that. Now, super important here, when you pull them out, make sure you pat it dry with a paper towel. You don't want to go rubbing on it. You'll start pulling some of that vinyl off that you just spent hours
getting just right. Now, if you look here, you can see I'm using it to burnish, and the vinyl's still warm as I'm doing this. So it's really laying down tight, and that adhesive underneath there is sealing up all around that raised edge on that hot stamp. Don't press too hard here because you don't want to stretch the vinyl. It's still warm, remember that. You can see here these little bitty bubbles here along the edges, how they've tightened up because of that hot dip in the clear water. Time for the hot dye. Now you can't really see it here because it's going so fast, but I like to dip the disc 2 or 3 times in a row. Dip it in, pull it out, dip it in, pull it out, just to wet the disc and to kind of break the water tension on it. It really helps prevent bubbles. I noticed that one day when I was doing a clear disc. And depending on the disc, I'll do usually 3 sessions or 3 dips here of 8 minutes each per disc. And be careful here because you can still get some of the dye on your fingers as you remove this vinyl, and you can smudge it on the disc. Ask me how I know. Let's take a closer look at this now. You can actually see a little better with the black right here. That hot stamp, it held good. There's this one spot here that I'm real curious about. I want to know if that bled or not. Thanks for taking the time to watch. I hope you learned something useful that you can take back into your own laboratory. Just remember, the more you practice, the easier it gets. Keep doing it.
tell you? Come on, did I tell you? Man, my man Josh knows what he's talking about. Here's what I hope. I hope you were able to glean as much good stuff out of that as I was, because that was chock full of goodness. That's what it was. Chock full of goodness. But I don't have like a ton of time to talk about that anymore, okay? Because this video is already getting like super long. We got to keep it moving. You were there. You saw it happen. So here we go. Here's what we'll start with on the backside. How about the surprise? Did you catch it? Come on. Did you catch it along the way? All right. There were 2 discs worked on in that video, right? That's got to mean something. Okay, so there was obviously the disc that you saw the both of us really dig into here. That Beavis and Butthead, Rob Zombie. The glare's not really cooperating with me. And then it's got the backspin there on this fancy Roc3. Come on, everybody loves to throw the Roc3. But then there was also this sucker that Josh was working on while he was trying to teach us the crazy detail weeding and stencil stuff. This is a Prodigy M2 with the Apocalypse Disc Dyes logo on it, but nothing else. And right, we're gonna give it away like this, right? So here's what we're gonna do with this sucker. One day later this week. I don't know what day, okay? And if I tell you which day, it's not gonna happen on that day because crap happens. So one day later this week, over on our Facebook page, we're gonna use this for our weekly live stream disc dye session, okay? And look, if you don't hang out with us over on Facebook, go over there and check it out. And then you can hit the buttons that let you know when crap happens. And then when this happens, you'll know when it's happening and you can be there. And it'll be happening. And then we'll funk this bad boy all up. And then we're gonna add it to the pot. And then bang, we're giving away 2 discs. Josh sent them both, okay? I'm not trying to take all the credit or anything. Josh deserves all the credit. Okay, so, but we gotta do, how are we gonna give them away, right? Because this one's a little different, but we're gonna try to keep it like mostly the same. So, 3 simple things you gotta do to enter the giveaway for a chance at getting one of these suckers right here. First, enlist in the TDIDI Army, okay? If you're new around here, what's that mean? Look, it's just our fancy way of saying subscribe to the channel. It just sounds cooler. And here's the other thing I'm gonna say. If you're not subscribing to Josh's YouTube channel as well, Apocalypse Disc Dyes, there's something wrong with you. There's something straight wrong with you after everything he's done for this giveaway for us. Because, man, come on. All right, and then, bang, that's the first thing. You're in there. Okay, number 2, comment down below. And comment on this video. It's got to be on this video. It can't be like on one of the postings or on another video or something. It's got to be down below here, okay? And then here, you can comment with whatever you want, okay? Maybe you just want to be like, I'm so excited! Whatever it is, in the beginning of your comment, right at the start, okay? Because it makes it so much easier for me to find. Put this, hashtag TDIDI, and then a space, and then any number in the whole universe between 1 and 5,000, okay? Put it right there. And that number, that's like your entry. It's super important, all right? So make it like your luckiest damn number. And then put it right there. And you don't need the parentheses that are here, okay? That's just to like show you it's a range. Just hashtag TDIDI space and then your luckiest damn number, okay? And I'm making a fuss out of it because here's the thing. People get it wrong every giveaway. And like, if it's wrong, if you put it in wrong, I can't count it. I want to count it. Count it. We're trying to give it away. But like, because it's a public giveaway, it's got to be fair and there's rules and it has to apply by the rules. And if you don't make the rules, then it doesn't work. And the Gaming Commission, I don't want someone to come after my YouTube channel because we didn't follow our own rules. You know? Maybe that was a needless rant, but look, if you get it wrong, I'll poke you and be like, get it right. But hashtag TDIDI space and then your damn number. Okay, and then those are the first 2. First 2, done. Next, C, third. Number 3. This is probably the most one important to me and Josh. Share this sucker with another hawker. Like, this is what we do to try to get the word out. And to help grow this sport. This is like a little easy thing we can do. Give away a piece of plastic every month. Get people excited about it. And to dye their own disc. Look, here's what I'm going to say. And I'm going to keep saying this in more videos. You can't imagine how much better it feels to huck your plastic after you've dyed it. Like throwing your own dyed plastic, it's so much cooler. It's like an exponential level of cooler. You're going to love it. So look, that's why we do this crap. People are like, let me get on the giveaway. And then they're like, maybe I should try this dyeing stuff. And then they're like, yo, this dyeing stuff is awesome. So share this sucker with another hawker. Get the word out. Shoot up a flare. Just tell your buddy at the disc golf course. Whatever it is. Bing, bang, boom. Those 3 things, and you're in there. And then, like all our other giveaways, we're going to run this sucker for 2 weeks, okay? Now, I know we're getting this thing started a little late in March, so it's going to take us into April. Josh and I both had a tough month. We're not going to talk about it. It's kind of sad. But look, 2 weeks takes us to April 6th, right at its stroke of midnight Eastern Standard Time. She done. She done! And then if you're in there, you're in there. And if you're not, life sucks. I don't know, I don't know what to tell you. And I'll wake up on April 7th, all excited and just frothing over to figure out who the winners are. And I'll beat bop, 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 figure out who it is, and then bang! I'll come back that day, right here on the YouTube channel, and we'll announce who the winners are. 2 people closest to the number are winning the disc. Closest to the number, right on the number. Boom. Beavis and Butthead Brahms Zombie. Next person in line. Boom! Taking the Apocalypse Disc Dyes M3, M2. Okay, and last, here's what we got in the pipeline coming up on the TDIDI airwaves. First, weather started to turn, which, come on, it's awesome. We can get back out there more. But here's the other thing. That means that I can finally get outside and do the TDIDI in the bag video that everybody's been asking about. Okay, I wasn't going to do it inside. That sucks. So that one, it's on the come. That one's going to happen soon. Next, like I said, this giveaway, we're getting it started late and it's rolling deep into April. I've already got April's Disc Art giveaway disc. It's done, ready to go. Okay, so like as soon as this one's done, whoosh, we're going to roll right into April. I don't even know if we've ever done that before. Like M1 start one, bang, here we go. So that one's ready. And the disc, this one's kind of like a tribute disc, okay? And it's special to me. This one's got, So maybe, hopefully it'll be special to you. But that one, it's done, is ready to go, coming up. Last, listen, we have got some rock star Other Basement Disc Dyers in the pipeline that'll be coming at you soon that are, look, they got the stuff that you want to learn. They got the stuff you want to know how to do. I'm super excited about the lineup of Other Basement Disc Dyers that we got coming up. And I say this every damn time. If you're one of those Other Basement Disc Dyers, this is how this stuff happens. If you're one of those Other Basement Disc Dyers and you got something that you're just like, yeah, yeah, hit a brother up. Just reach out. Let me know about it. And then I'll do that crap, and then boom, we got another one. That's how this stuff happens. And then, you know, the tide rises. The tide rises for all of us. So there's some coming that get ready, okay? And look, if you're one of those, hit a brother up. That brings us, you know, unfortunately to the end. That was a lot of time together, but that brings us to the end of our time today. We can't let this end without saying another huge thank you to Josh over at Apocalypse Disc Dyes, my man. Be going straight from this video over to his YouTube channel and binge out on some disc dyeing that looks way cooler while it's happening than it does over here at TDIDI. You know, we'll be back at the very least with the results on the 7th, but I got a feeling something's going to happen in between now and then. I'm hoping what that is you just keep doing it.
Why can't you do it?
Hey!
Everybody!
Oh.
Heartbreaker!
Oh no.